The Judgment and Exodus. The crystalline walls of the Grand Council chamber on Nexus station reflected the light of 1,000 stars, creating patterns that danced across the faces of representatives from 73 different species. Captain. Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the vast circular hall, her diplomatic uniform bearing the blue and gold insignia of the Terran Federation. Around her, alien delegates whispered in languages that ranged from melodic chimes to grinding mechanical sounds. High above, floating in a sphere of contained atmosphere, the gaseous ethereal swirled in patterns that indicated deep thought. To her left, the insectoid hivarchs clicked their mandibles in what Elena had learned was their version of nervous energy. The towering granite lords stood motionless as mountains, their rocky faces revealing nothing of their thoughts. Supreme. Arbiter Zixthala, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering force field, spoke with a voice that resonated through every translator in the chamber. The Terran species stands accused of being fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization. The evidence presented shows a pattern of unpredictable behavior, violent solutions to diplomatic problems, and a dangerous tendency to corrupt. Other species with concepts of individual freedom over collective harmony. Elena felt her heart pounding, but kept her expression neutral. She had spent 3 days presenting humanity's case, showing recordings of human peacekeepers protecting alien colonies, human doctors saving lives across species barriers, and human engineers solving problems that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds. None of it seemed to matter now, the Arbiter continued. The recent incident at the Kepler Trade Hub demonstrates this dangerous nature. When faced with a simple territorial dispute, humans chose violence over negotiation, resulting in the deaths of 17 Valorian citizens. Elena wanted to shout that the humans at Kepler Hub had been defending themselves against Valorian pirates who had been raiding merchant vessels for months. She wanted to explain that the 17 dead Valorians were criminals, not innocent citizens, but she could see in the faces around her that the decision had already been made. Therefore, the Arbiter announced, the Galactic Council declares humanity unfit for civilized society. All human presence must be removed from Council space within 48 standard hours. Any humans found in Council territory after this deadline will be considered hostile invaders. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds. Some species cheered, others remained silent, and a few seemed to protest the harsh sentence. Elena noticed that the Karathi delegation, fierce warriors who had always respected human courage in battle, were arguing loudly with their neighbors. The crystalline Zephyrins, master scientists who had collaborated with human researchers for decades, dimmed their natural light in what Elena recognized as a sign of shame. Elena stepped forward and spoke clearly into the chaos. The human species accepts this judgment, though we know it is based on fear rather than justice. We will leave your territory as demanded. But remember this day, because humanity will not simply vanish into the darkness. We will survive. We will adapt, and we will become whatever we need to become. As Elena turned to leave the chamber, she heard a deep, rumbling voice call out, "This decision brings dishonor upon the Council," roared War Chief Fax of the Karathi. "Humanity has fought beside my people with courage and honor. To exile them for defending themselves shows cowardice, not wisdom." Elena did not stay to hear the response. She had work to do. The evacuation of 15 billion humans from 200 worlds became the largest population movement in galactic history. Elena found herself coordinating refugee fleets while Dr. Marcus Chun, a brilliant xenobiologist, worked frantically to identify worlds in the lawless outer rim that could support human life. General Sarah Thompson mobilized every available military vessel to protect the civilian transports, while Engineer Pavel Novak supervised the desperate effort to salvage crucial equipment and technology. The scenes were heartbreaking across human Space. On the agricultural world of New Eden, families watched their crops burn as they loaded onto transport ships. The farmers had decided that if they could not harvest their fields, the council would not benefit from their labor either. On the research station, Alpha Centauri, scientists destroyed decades of data rather than leave it for the council to claim. Dr. Chun received the evacuation order while studying rare minerals in the Kepler asteroid belt. Instead of abandoning his research, he made a discovery that would change humanity's future. Hidden within the asteroids was a previously unknown element that seemed to bend space and time around itself. This could revolutionize faster-than-light travel, he told his assistant as they loaded samples onto their ship. The Council's hyperspace drives are primitive compared to what this element might be. Pavel Novak faced the impossible task of moving the massive shipyards at Luna Prime. The construction facilities represented centuries of human engineering knowledge and billions of credits in infrastructure. There was no time to dismantle everything properly, so Novak's teams worked frantically to download technical specifications and load portable manufacturing equipment onto cargo ships. Before they left, explosive charges reduced the shipyards to glowing debris. If humanity could not use them, no one would. General Thompson coordinated the military evacuation while establishing defensive positions around the refugee fleets. Outer Rim was notorious for pirate attacks and rogue AI hunting parties. Her forces would need to protect millions of civilians during the dangerous journey to uncharted space. "We're not refugees," she told her officers during a briefing aboard the dreadnought Endeavour. "We're explorers heading into territory that will become our new home." The first human colony ships reached the barren world that would be named Hopes, landing after 3 weeks of travel through unmapped space. Elena stood on the bridge of the transport vessel New Dawn, watching the brown and gray planet grow larger on the view screen. Atmospheric readings showed it could barely support human life, with thin air and extreme temperature variations. There were no oceans, no forests, no signs of the abundant life that humans were accustomed to seeing on habitable worlds. Chief Engineer Patricia Lopez reported from her console. Oxygen levels are at minimum breathable standards. Gravity is about 80% of Earth normal. Temperature swings from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius. We'll need environmental suits for any extended surface activity. Elena nodded grimly and began preparations for what would be the most challenging task of her career. As former diplomatic liaison to the Council colonies, she had managed relationships between established civilizations with centuries of infrastructure and stable supply lines. Now she faced keeping 200,000 refugees alive on a world with no cities, no farms, no power grid, and no protection from the dangers of the Outer Rim. The landing took 5 days as shuttle after shuttle carried people and supplies to the planet's surface. Families huddled in temporary shelters made from cargo containers while work crews struggled to establish basic life support systems. Water had to be extracted from underground ice deposits and purified through portable filtration units. Food came from emergency supplies carried by the colony ships, but those reserves would only last a few months. Pavel Novak worked 20-hour days trying to establish power generation and communication networks. His engineering teams had to improvise solutions, using salvaged equipment and parts that were never designed for frontier conditions. Solar panels meant for space stations were modified to work in the planet's frequent dust storms. Mining equipment was converted into construction tools. Every piece of technology had to be rebuilt or repurposed for their new reality. The first major crisis came during the second week when a massive dust storm knocked out their primary power grid. Without electricity, the water purification systems failed and food storage units began to lose power. Dr. Susan Martinez led medical teams who worked by emergency lighting to treat people suffering from dehydration and exposure to toxic dust particles. Children cried in the darkness, while parents tried to comfort them with promises that conditions would improve. But humans had survived worse challenges before. The colonists organized themselves into specialized work groups, each responsible for different aspects of survival. Former soldiers became security forces. Scientists became farmers. Office workers became construction crews. Everyone contributed whatever skills they possessed to the collective effort of staying alive. The real test came when the pirates arrived. The Crimson Syndicate had been terrorizing the Outer Rim for decades, preying on isolated settlements and undefended ships. Their fleet commander, a reptilian alien called Skarai, led over 40 warships crewed by criminals and outcasts from across the galaxy. When his scouts reported a new human settlement on Hope's Landing, he saw easy prey full of valuable supplies and potential slaves. Security Chief Robert Kane had been a colonial Marine before becoming a settlement peace officer. When pirate ships appeared in Hope's Landing sky, he quickly organized the colony's defenses. Most colonists had no military training, but Kane understood that desperate people defending their families could fight harder than professional soldiers if they had proper leadership and motivation. These pirates expect to find helpless refugees begging for mercy, Kane told the volunteers, who gathered in the colony's makeshift command center. They don't understand that humans don't surrender, especially when we're protecting our children and our future. We may not have fancy weapons or military training, but we have something they don't have. We have everything to lose and nothing left to fear. The pirates landed expecting to encounter frightened civilians who would surrender immediately. Instead, they walked into carefully planned ambushes. Colonists armed with mining equipment and improvised weapons struck from concealed positions throughout the settlement. Children who knew every tunnel and hiding place carried messages between defender groups. Even elderly colonists contributed by building barriers and creating obstacles to slow the pirate advance. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, half the pirate force was dead or captured, and the survivors were fleeing back to their ships in panic. The colonists had lost 19 people, but they had proven something crucial to themselves and to anyone else who might be watching. Humanity might have been cast out from civilized space, but they were far from helpless. Skarai himself was among the captured pirates. When he demanded the return of his ships and crew, Kane's response was broadcast throughout the Outer Rim on captured pirate communication channels. You came here looking for easy victims. You found humans instead. If you want your ships back, you're welcome to come and try to take them. News of the victory at Hope's Landing spread quickly through the scattered human settlements. On the mining world of New Texas, Colonel Maria Santos used similar tactics to defeat a different pirate gang that tried to steal their equipment. On the research station Deep Thought, Dr. Alex Kumar and his team not only fought off attackers, but captured their ships and began reverse engineering alien technology. Meanwhile, Dr. Chun was making discoveries that would transform humanity's future in the Outer Rim. While studying the unusual properties of the Veil Nebula, he found something that had escaped Council scientists for centuries. Hidden within the swirling cosmic gases was the same space-bending element he had discovered in the Kepler asteroids, but in much greater concentrations. This changes everything, Chun explained to his research team as they examined samples of the strange material. The Council's faster-than-light drives require massive amounts of energy and can only achieve about 50 times light speed. This element could make travel at thousands of times light speed possible, maybe even instantaneous transportation across galactic distances. The discovery came at the perfect time. Human settlements were scattered across hundreds of light years, connected only by slow transport ships and unreliable communication networks. If Chun and his team could develop new propulsion technology, it would give humanity a massive advantage over both the Council and the various threats of the Outer Rim. General Thompson had been working to organize scattered human military units into a coherent defense force. The victories at Hope's Landing and similar settlements showed that humans could protect themselves. But Thompson knew they needed better coordination and strategic planning. She established the Outer Rim Defense Force with headquarters on Hope's Landing and began training programs that would transform colonists into soldiers. At the same time, economist Dr. Rachel Martinez was solving the supply problems that threatened every human settlement. Cut off from Council trade networks, the colonies faced shortages of everything from medical supplies to basic manufacturing materials. Martinez created a trading system that connected human settlements with each other, and with the few alien traders willing to do business in the dangerous Outer Rim, the transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, the scattered refugees had become organized communities. They were no longer running from their exile, but building something new and potentially more powerful than what they had left behind in Council space. Asterisk. Rise of the Shadow Empire. 2 years after the Exile, the Outer Rim was unrecognizable. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, the first warship built entirely by human hands in their new territory using Dr. Chun's revolutionary propulsion technology. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, combining human engineering creativity with alien technologies acquired from defeated pirates and innovations developed by other exiled species who had joined the growing human alliance. This Defiance was sleek and deadly, its hull painted matte black with silver markings that seemed to absorb light from the surrounding stars. Inside, the corridors buzzed with activity as crew members from 4 different species worked together in harmony. Humans operated the advanced weapon systems. Korathi warriors served as security officers. Crystalline Zephyrins monitored the experimental engines, and even a few reformed pirates from various species had found new purpose as technical specialists. The alliance had begun through necessity rather than design. When Korathi refugee ships first encountered human colonists on the world that would become known as Valor's Edge, both groups had expected conflict. The Korathi had been exiled from Council space for their rigid honor code and their refusal to abandon their warrior traditions. The Council considered them too violent and primitive for modern civilization, the same judgment they had passed on humanity. Commander David Park had been leading a supply convoy to Valor's Edge when both groups were attacked simultaneously by the same pirate fleet that had been terrorizing settlements throughout the sector. Instead of competing for limited resources or territory, the humans and Korathi found themselves fighting side by side against a common enemy. The humans brought tactical flexibility and advanced improvised weapons, while the Korathi provided unmatched combat skills and unbreakable courage in battle. War Chief Thax, the same Korathi leader who had spoken against humanity's exile in the Council chambers, fought alongside Park's forces during the 3-day battle. When the pirates were finally defeated, Thax approached the human commander with deep respect. "Your people fight with true honor," the massive alien warrior said, his scarred face showing genuine admiration. "We were told by the Council that humans were without honor, that they fought only for profit and personal gain. The Council spoke falsely about your species, just as they lied about mine." Asterisk. The partnership grew stronger when the Zephyrian refugees arrived several months later. These master scientists and engineers had been exiled for their radical ideas about technology and their refusal to limit their research to what the Council considered safe and acceptable. Dr. Lyra Zephyr, a brilliant crystalline being whose body refracted light into beautiful rainbow patterns, found that her people's engineering principles could solve problems that had puzzled human researchers for years. The Zephyrins possessed an understanding of energy, manipulation, and material science that was centuries ahead of human knowledge. But they lacked humanity's ability to adapt quickly and improvise solutions under pressure. When human creativity combined with Zephyrin precision and Karathi determination, the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Pavel Novak worked closely with Dr. Zephyr to develop new manufacturing techniques that could produce advanced technology. Using resources found only in the outer rim, their joint research led to breakthroughs in energy shields, artificial gravity systems, and most importantly, improvements to Dr. Chun's space-folding drive technology. Within a year, human ships could travel distances that took Council vessels weeks to traverse in a matter of hours. President Elena Vasquez had been elected to lead this growing alliance of exiled species. Her government operated from the former asteroid mining station that had been converted into Alliance headquarters in the Liberty system. The station had been expanded into a massive complex that served as both capital and symbol of what the exiled peoples could accomplish when they worked together. The Council maintained their power by keeping us divided, Vasquez explained during a broadcast to all Alliance settlements. They convinced each species that we were unique in our flaws and dangerous to galactic stability. They made the Karathi believe they were too violent, the Zephyrins believe they were too reckless, and humans believe we were too unpredictable. But our supposed flaws are actually our greatest strengths, and together we have become something the Council never expected. U.S. to become. The Alliance Constitution had been drafted by legal scholar Maria Santos, a former Council prosecutor who had become disgusted with the political trials that led to mass exiles. The document established principles of cooperation between species, while respecting each group's cultural values and traditions. Unlike the Council's rigid hierarchy, the Alliance operated on principles of mutual respect and shared decision-making. But the Alliance was not content to simply survive in exile. They had been developing something that would shock the galaxy, a hidden network of bases, trade routes, and communication systems that extended secretly throughout Council space and beyond. The Shadow Network, as it became known, allowed the Alliance to gather intelligence, conduct trade, and even recruit sympathizers from within Council territory. Admiral Rex Harrison had been a decorated Council fleet officer until he witnessed the brutality of the exile operations firsthand. Disgusted by orders to fire on refugee ships trying to evacuate civilians, Harrison had defected with his entire battle group and joined the Alliance. His knowledge of Council military procedures and weaknesses proved invaluable in establishing the Shadow Network. The Council believes we disappeared into the darkness of the Outer Rim, Harrison explained to Alliance intelligence officers during a briefing. They have no idea that we have agents and allies on hundreds of their worlds. We know their fleet movements, their political disputes, and their economic vulnerabilities better than they know them themselves. The first major test of Alliance power came when the notorious Crimson Syndicate launched a massive assault on the Liberty system. The Crimson Lord, a mysterious figure who commanded the largest pirate fleet in the galaxy, had decided that the growing Alliance posed a threat to his criminal empire. His force included over 200 warships crewed by the most dangerous criminals and murderers from across known space. They think we're still helpless refugees hiding in the darkness, General Thompson told the Alliance Defense Force as they prepared for battle. They're about to learn that we've become something much more dangerous than refugees. We've become survivors who have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The Battle of Liberty system lasted for 6 hours and became legendary throughout the galaxy. The Alliance fleet, though outnumbered 3-1, used superior technology and tactics to systematically destroy the pirate armada. Human-designed ships with Zephyrin energy shields and Karathi-trained crews proved devastating in combat. The Alliance's new space-folding drives allowed their ships to appear and disappear at will, striking the pirates from unexpected directions. Before vanishing again, Dr. Tron's latest innovation, Quantum torpedoes that could phase through normal matter and explode inside enemy ships proved particularly effective against pirate vessels. The Crimson Lord himself was captured when his flagship was boarded by a combined force of human marines and Karathi warriors led personally by War Chief Thax. When the battle ended, the Alliance had not only defeated the largest pirate fleet in galactic history, but had also captured enough ships and equipment to double the size of their own navy. More importantly, news of the victory spread throughout both the Outer Rim and Council space, announcing to the galaxy that humanity and their allies had become a force to be reckoned with. The economic transformation was equally impressive. Dr. Rachel Martinez had established trade relationships with dozens of species throughout the galaxy, many of whom preferred dealing with the Alliance rather than the corrupt and bureaucratic Council markets. Alliance colonies were producing goods and technologies that were superior to Council equivalents and selling them at lower prices. The Zephyrin crystals grown in Outer Rim conditions proved to be more efficient than anything the Council had ever developed. Karathi-forged metals were stronger and lighter than traditional alloys. Human-designed computers and artificial intelligence systems were more adaptable and reliable than Council technology. Within 2 years, Alliance products were being smuggled into Council space and sold on black markets throughout civilized territory. We've created something the Council never achieved, economist Dr. Martinez reported to President Vasquez. A truly free market economy where innovation is rewarded and cooperation between species leads to mutual prosperity. Our gross production has increased by 400% in the last year alone, and we're still growing exponentially. But perhaps the most significant development was the growing unrest within Council space itself. Reports from Shadow Network agents indicated that several species were beginning to question the Council's authority and wisdom. The economic success of the Alliance, combined with stories of cooperation between previously hostile species, was inspiring reform movements throughout the galaxy. On the Valorian homeworld, protests demanded trade relationships with the Alliance. Granite Lord mining guilds were refusing to provide resources to the Council military. Even some ethereal philosophers were publicly questioning whether the exile policy had been a mistake. The Council's response was predictably authoritarian: increased security measures, restrictions on communication, and crackdowns on dissent. The Council is terrified, reported Agent Sarah Kim from her undercover position on Nexus Station. They're realizing that instead of eliminating a problem, they created something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. The exiled species haven't just survived, they've thrived and become an inspiration to others who feel oppressed by Council rule. Dr. Chun made another breakthrough that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Working with Zephyrin scientists, he developed a method for creating artificial wormholes that could connect any 2 points in space instantaneously. The technology would allow Alliance forces to appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, making their territory effectively invulnerable to invasion while giving them the ability to project power anywhere they chose. This changes everything, Shun explained to the Alliance Leadership Council. We no longer need to fear Council retaliation, because we can strike at their core worlds faster than they can respond. More importantly, we can offer this technology to oppressed species throughout the galaxy, giving them the power to resist Council domination. The implications were staggering. The Council's control over the galaxy had always depended on their monopoly over faster-than-light communication and transportation. If the Alliance could provide superior technology to anyone who wanted it, the Council's power structure would collapse within years rather than decades. President Vasquez stood before the Alliance Council as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Dozens of species were sending secret diplomatic missions to Alliance territory. Revolutionary movements were emerging on Council worlds. The rigid hierarchy that had controlled the galaxy for millennia was beginning to crack under the pressure of new ideas and possibilities. 2 years ago, we were cast out as criminals and undesirables, she said to the assembled representatives of the Alliance species. Today, we have become the beacon of hope for every species that dreams of freedom from Council oppression. We have proven that diversity is strength, that cooperation is more powerful than domination, and that the so-called flaws that led to our exile were actually the qualities that made us unstoppable. The transformation was complete. The scattered refugees who had been driven into the darkness of the Outer Rim had become the foundation of a new galactic order. They had built not just an empire in the shadows, but a revolutionary force that would reshape the galaxy according to principles of freedom, cooperation, and mutual respect between all intelligent species. The Council had exiled them to prevent corruption of galactic civilization. Instead, they had created something that would ultimately replace that civilization with something far better. Humanity and their allies had not just survived their exile, they had used it to become exactly what the galaxy needed them to become.